Hello, I'm Jingyu, and today I will present how NCS students learn Chinese in Hong Kong, China. So there are three parts to this presentation. So I will start to go over the language, education, culture, and the policy of Hong Kong. And next is the Chinese language education curriculum about Hong Kong. The last is the Chinese language education curriculum assessment. So let's start. Before we start, let's learn more about Hong Kong culture. As we know, Hong Kong has been multilingual region and it is a special administrative region of China, and at the same time implement one country and two systems. The Cantonese and English are the dominant language in Hong Kong. According to the research data, Cantonese is spoken in 89% of households. 38% of the population claims the ability to speak English, and the next 25% claims to talk about Mandarin, that is the national language of China. Hong Kong is called the Asian World City because the Chinese and Western cultures in Hong Kong continue to develop and interact, gradually forming a combination of Chinese and Western culture in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong convergence of both Chinese and Western cultures. In Hong Kong, many streets and shops are bilingual in Chinese, English, and other ethnic minority languages. In addition, Hong Kong is a big trade area. Many residents come to Hong Kong and work on here, so their children live and study also in Hong Kong. So that's why many ethnic minority students in Hong Kong. The next part is the Chinese language education policy in Hong Kong. This part describes the three different time language policy in Hong Kong. The first one is the language policy pre-handover, and the language policy since the handover. The next one is biliteracy and trilingualism language in education policy. That is the current language policy in Hong Kong. So let's see. The language situation in Hong Kong before 1997 was very complicated. We can see this word is the diglossia, and the superposed bilingualism, and are two words used to describe the language sense of the colonial in Hong Kong at that time. And the diglossia situation in Hong Kong refers to different states in the function of English and Chinese. Because at that time the British occupied a relatively high position in Hong Kong, so English was the official language of Hong Kong at that time. Therefore, English is a higher language because it's frequently used in education, government administration, and the legislature. However, Chinese is a common language at home and in social communications. The next is the superposed bilingualism. Actually, this word is not a product of the natural bilingual environment, which was formed during the Hong Kong colonization, with China opening up a policy in 1978. More and more migrate tourists, and in Georgia, officials flocked to Hong Kong. Mandarin has gradually become the third most popular spoken language in Hong Kong. So, which means that the former diglossia then yielded to trilingualism, and the superposed bilingualism gave way to the bilingualism. Since Hong Kong returned to China in 1997, all aspects of Hong Kong have a significant change, even include language policy. After handover, they put forward two language policies, implementation potential trilingual policy and enhancement Chinese medium instruction policy. The primary purpose of these two policies is to integrate Mandarin into Hong Kong society, which is also beginning of implementing the biliteracy and the trilingualism language policy. So the third part is the biliteracy and the trilingual language in education policy. So what is this policy? Uh, the policy are essential for Hong Kong language education. Firstly, the biliteracy and trilingualism refer to written and the three spoken languages. Biliteracy is written in Chinese and English. The trilingualism is spoken in Chinese, Cantonese, and English. However, this language policy also has some challenges. The first one is in Hong Kong, people say speak Cantonese almost the time, so Cantonese is too widely used. Also, Cantonese is now the official language. It has been immersed in people's lives. People will prefer to use Cantonese no matter on social media or email. In other words, the Cantonese is used almost the time in their daily life. So the second is in Hong Kong, especially in some workplace, people mix the Chinese and English to communicate. However, for some Hong Kong people who are not very rich in economy, English has a little to do with their daily life. They do not have many opportunities to listen to English songs, watch TV programs, or read English newspaper or magazines. As for Hong Kong people who mainly speak Cantonese, schools are almost the only place to learn English. And the English they contacted and learn comes almost entirely from English class. Also, English is ubiquity in society for Hong Kong people. But for Hong Kong people, the language environment of Hong Kong makes English more like a foreigner language than a second language. The third is the Chinese characters are ideographic, and it takes a longer to learn them than Western characters. And Chinese characters have many strokes and complex structures, and require regular repeat practice of strokes and the strokes to achieve long-term to memories. And so the Chinese reading and writing ability is time consuming. And the last is there are significant differences between spoken and written Chinese and English, because their grammar structure is different and some pronunciation is different. So let's move on to the Chinese language education curriculum part. There are three parts, and I will talk about the curriculum framework, modes, and the end. I choose two curriculum modes to analyze. So the first one is the curriculum framework. The learning context of Chinese language education includes 9 streams. And in the 9 learning streams, the reading, reading, listening, speaking, thinking, and independent language learning emphasize the development of students' language skills. However, however, for literatures, Chinese culture, moral and affective developments uh, emphasize nourishment of intrinsic qualities such as ideas and the feeling. Under the curriculum framework, the reading, writing, speaking, listening belong to the generic skills. The generic skills mainly aim to develop students' communication skills, creative and critical thinking. The second, with the second curriculum the second one is curriculum organization, which means the teacher should be considered how uh, organize the curriculum. No matter what mode the school applies, school should be provide the student with a rich learning experience in 9 learning streams, general skills, values, and attitude. Of course, content should meet the learning objectives of each key learning area. At the same time, in order to organize the course effectively, it is suggested that the schools pay attention to the following point. The first one is to adopt an appreciate curriculum organization approach, reasonable arrangement of learning objectives, and proper recycling of learning objectives. The next, when designing the learning context of language course in school, it is necessary to consider what content is suitable for NCS students' learning and the various factors. The factor including mother tongue and second language learning, family background, and cultural background that can help teacher to determine the learning context. Therefore, the learning context of NCS students should be designed from following aspects. Firstly, in learning Chinese language, students should master recognition and writing. Secondly, is the language application. It is generally has two aspects. Their interpersonal communication and knowledge construction. Interpersonal communication means that people can communicate with Chinese speakers after learning essential spoken. However, if they want to learn Chinese further, they should increase their vocabulary to achieve conjugative academic language ability and expand their learning range. The last one is the literature, Chinese culture, and moral and affective development, which mainly aims to inspiring students learning Chinese interest. By learning Chinese culture, NCI students can learn more about China, such as the social environment and habits. That can help them integrate better into the community. In addition, before we talk about Hong Kong is a multilingual city. Okay, so the diversity cultural environment for NCS students studying Hong Kong is the strength, because the process of learning can depend replication of students' understanding of the different culture of the world different culture, learn to respect the different cultures with an open mind to accept the different nationalities. Okay, so nationalities all over the world, cultural diversity. The third process learning. The third is the process learning. Firstly, NCS students need to apply the skills that is can help NCS students integrate into school life as soon as possible. and fluently use Chinese language and adapted to the environment of Hong Kong. So the development of a student's language skills, especially in the speaking and listening skills, usually take a priority in the arrangement of learning content. This part can be divided into three levels. They are understand the teacher's instructions, participate in class activities, express your ideas clear and communicate effectively with the teachers and classmates. And then when students can listening and speaking, uh, sorry, and then when students familiar with listening and speaking in Chinese language, the school should systematically help them learn a large number of words to improve their reading and the writing skills of either. But there is a one condition that they have to know Chinese characters because the curriculum mentioned that NCI students at the beginning stage of learning Chinese, when they see the Chinese character, they think the character look like the picture, and they don't know what the Chinese characters strokes are. So therefore, it is recommended that the student understand some simple part while learning to recognize Chinese characters. That can help NCS students remember and distinguish characters shapes, and then they can try to combine radicals and compounds to form more vocabulary. Finally, when they can recognize, read, and write the Chinese characters, they can begin to reading and writing easily. So next is about curriculum planning and modes. Um, the Chinese language curriculum planning basic principles are uh, provide balance and comprehensive language learning and adjustment curriculum according to student situations because the NCI students come from different country and area. They speak their Chinese language level is differently. And next is cu- cu- the curriculum should be flexible teaching and diversified learning in the assignated culture. In the last principle is it should be fulfilling parents and the students' aspiration. Okay, so let's see the curriculum's modes. According to students' need and the Chinese language level, the school designed the different curriculum modes for NCS students. There are four modes, and they are immersion in Chinese language lessons, transition bridging, specific learning purpose, and integrated. Okay, so let's see the first one. We can see this table. Um, the first one is immersion in Chinese language lessons. Uh, this modes means that the school arrange NCS students to learn with other local students. That is to say, NCS students are divided into different classes and can frequently contact other local students to speak Cantonese and learn more Chinese. In this mode, students are exposed to the Chinese language early before they arriving in Hong Kong, or their Chinese language level has reached their desired and needs. Compared with other modes, the advantage of this mode is that NCS students can be fully immersed in Chinese courses and they can learn the language in different contexts in real situations, such as participating in school activities and the club. And yeah, so in the reach Chinese environment, NCS students can learn, communicate, and improve their Chinese learning. They can also study with other Chinese-speaking students, so that they can learn better Chinese through the communication, collaborative learning, and the group discussion. Of course, this mode will also face some challenges, even if NCS students' Chinese level is high as they need to be. They will also have experienced cultural differences and the transition between their mother tongue and the Chinese language. So the teacher should diagnose students' Chinese abilities, needs, and provide the target uh, remedial measures and observation students class when implementing this mode the performance. The next is the bridging and transition. This mode aims at the student new to Hong Kong and the late contact with the Chinese language in the different Chinese language proficiency levels, and they have a development career plan in Hong Kong. Compared with the Model 1 and Model 2, can help NCS students enhance their Chinese language level, and more focused on learning will also have a sufficiency time to experience the process of learning Chinese. Students at the transition bridging stage will have a little prior exposure to Chinese, so their level of Chinese is limited and they will have a relatively low starting point. In addition, teacher must pay attention to and evaluate students' learning progress to judge whether these students are further integrated into the Chinese learning. And when implementing these modes, teachers should pay attention to students' progress, adjust their teaching strategy according to their learning progress, or use different methods for different age groups of students. How to assessment the students? The immersion in Chinese language lessons mode just set for level test, and I provide the test name end of the presentations. Okay. So let's continue. Okay, so next is a specific learning purpose mode. That is the school select the specific Chinese learning content to respond to learning needs flexible. These students are returnees or transit residents. This mode is suitable for students who are transit residents. And in addition, the challenge is that this mode can only satisfy particular needs, which means students may have a limited social interaction in Chinese, such as the reading advertisement and fill out some request forms like a bank or shopping receipt, like something like. Their Chinese professing may be not sufficient for language application in more complex situations, such as reading some formal newspapers and articles. So when teachers choose this mode, they should consider that the learning context is a specific language learning areas, what skills the NCS students need and they want to improve, like listening or speaking. Also, they have to focus on the practical functions as a purpose, like reading newspapers, email, or basically writing needs. The last is integrated. If a school enrolls a large number of NCS students from different backgrounds at different levels and to vary rate of learning, they may have to take multiple courses at the same time and integrate the use of teaching modes. The advantage of these modes can provide different language programs to meet students' needs. that the school needed to design various programs with other target. And when teachers implement this mode, they need to assess students' language levels and then assign to the corresponding class. Okay, so let's move on to the curriculum analyze. In this part, I choose two uh, curriculum mode, one of which applies to any mode. That means it means it applies to various modes, and another is the specific learning purpose mode. Sorry, I forgot. So, and specific specific learning purpose. Sorry, I forgot to write it. And okay, so I will analyze the two modes of curriculums according to the teaching principle, objective, content, and materials. So this is overview teaching principles. Whatever modes the teacher all following these principles. So the first one is the learner is the center and during the study, and the teacher should understand the student's ability and focus on listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. Plan instruction and set accurate learning objectives, and respect cultural diversity and meet diversity needs. The last one is a flexible choice and the use of learning materials, the use of the multimedia resource to assist students' learning. Okay, so the first one is for the virus mode. The subject is the daily life, and the grade is the secondary one. Okay, so let's see this table. Um, this I choose two models to introduce. In this virus mode, the this mode curriculum's first class is the pre-overview. The pre-overview class is to help the teacher to know students' Chinese language level and introduce course level examination and course requirement, and it will also teach some simple Mandarin content like pinyin. And the teaching objectives are learn more about course content level and examination requirement, and let the student know their level of Chinese language, and give students a preliminary grasp of Mandarin tongues. So how teacher assessment students, so they will let the students have a basic Chinese language level test to assessment students Chinese language level. The second class is the class exploration in Chinese. That is to teach students some simple Chinese words and vocabulary. This vocabulary used frequently during the class, like hello. In Chinese is 你好, and if you want to hands up, the student what should they say? Okay, so and the teaching objective for this model is familiarize with class language to make teaching more smooth, and let the student know how to say hello in Chinese, and introduce themselves, say the date, time, and the time in Mandarin. Yeah, so that is the teaching objectives. And Finally, teachers will use assessment with the following methods: reread the words, vocabulary learned on class, and peer exercise, like a practice conversation or use sentences structure to make new sentences, and listening and speaking exercise. Um, yeah. So next is about this curriculum analysis is for Model 3. It's a specific purpose lesson. This subject is also the daily life, but the grade is a secondary 1 to 2. Uh, this mode curriculum unit 1 is a pre-overview. Uh, the pre-overview that introduce the Chinese language to students. But for this curriculum, Unit 1 does not have a teaching objectives and exercise assessment. And compared with the before mode curriculum, the specific purpose of lesson mode Unit 2 is to teach students number, date, and time. And the exercise our students have to write and read about numbers, date, and time in Chinese. And the teacher will let students dictation this Chinese word and to check student whether they remember this vocabulary, and they will ask a question like the students answering. And it also have a reading and a speaking quiz to check to assessment the students. The last part is Chinese language education curriculum assessment. So regarding Chinese language education assessment, in order to facilitate NCS students. Okay, so regarding Chinese language education assessment, in order to facilitate NCS students learning Chinese, teachers can evaluate the students' learning outcomes in more varied and diversified ways. Teachers can also adjust the assessment strategy according to the progress of the students. The next is the internal assessment of qualitative feedback can ensure students' strengths and weaknesses. It can also provide high qualitative feedback to to teachers, and the teachers can find out the students' learning and strengths and weaknesses to break the learning into smaller parts to make it easier for students to learn. About for the measurement of Chinese language learning standard, this assessment primary purpose is for teachers to better measure students' Chinese proficiencies at a different stage. For example, the admission diagnosis of the first class of the two various mode curriculum help teachers design appreciate the learning objectives and the content for bridge courses. The diagnosing different virtual stages can help teachers understand the students' learning progress and adjust curriculum and the learning standards in time. Teachers can also judge whether students have reached the threshold of Chinese learning through the diagnosis. The finally is external assessment, which means take some tests to prove the student's Chinese proficiency. The last is a curriculum strength and the improvement. For this curriculum, it ensures NCS students' Chinese language level and certify diversity of curriculum modes and content. It also has a clear main teaching objectives and other objectives. But there still have some please need to improvement. I just show the two units of these models, and in next models unit, some assessment are same. So I think maybe it can according to student progress and content to do the different assessment for each unit. And the last is the unit 1 of model 3 do not have a teaching objectives and assessment. I know it's a pre-overview class, but I think it can also, I think it, if it can have teaching objectives and the assessment is better than do not have this. Okay, so this is Chinese language examinations name, and okay, so here is my references. So thank you for listening my presentation.